On a peaceful family cruise, a father and his 7-year-old daughter vanish without a trace, leaving behind no clues, no answers, and a mother shattered by loss. 14 years later, as the mother struggles to rebuild her life, a casual evening, watching YouTube turns into a moment that shakes her to the core. Staring back from a viral video is a face she'd recognize anywhere. Her daughter, now grown. How could this be possible? What truly happened that day aboard the cruise ship? In the bustling city of Berlin, Germany, life for the Muller family was everything anyone could dream of, at least on the surface. Helena Muller was the kind of mother who could make any house feel like a warm home. With gentle blue eyes and long blonde curls, she had a smile that seemed always ready to comfort, even in the smallest moments. She was organized, attentive, deeply caring, and most importantly, dedicated entirely to her husband Christian and their sweet 7-year-old daughter. Emma. Christian Muller was perceived by all who knew him as the ideal father and husband. Tall, charming, and with neatly combed blonde hair, he was charismatic and kind, always polite with the neighbors and attentive to his family. Yet, beneath his carefully constructed exterior lay something hidden, a subtle tension, an obsessive precision that no one truly noticed or understood, least of all Helena, who saw in Christian nothing but strength and safety. Emma was the heart of their family. At 7, she possessed an energy and curiosity that brought joy wherever she went. Her laugh was contagious, ringing through their apartment like a bell. Her bright blonde hair, pulled often into a playful ponytail, bounced around as she explored the world around her with innocent wonder. Emma had an unusual habit. Whenever nervous or overly excited, she twisted a specific lock of her hair, a tiny gesture that Helena adored. Life, in general, was comfortable and happy in their cozy apartment in central Berlin. Their routines were simple and fulfilling. Christian worked as an architect, designing buildings that symbolized stability and perfection, while Helena devoted herself fully to family, creating an environment filled with love. Still, despite their apparent happiness, something was about to happen that would forever disrupt their tranquil existence. When Christian first announced the plan for a luxurious cruise aboard the renowned Northern Star, sailing from Hamburg to the breathtaking coast of Norway, excitement filled their small apartment. Helena imagined the beautiful landscapes they would witness together. Christian spoke excitedly about the comfort and elegance awaiting them, and Emma, thrilled about the trip, danced around the house, unable to contain her joy. Soon the day of departure arrived, and the Mullers traveled from Berlin to Hamburg by train. At the bustling port, the majestic Northern Star waited in brilliant sunshine. The ship itself was enormous and awe-inspiring, gleaming under the warm sun, a symbol of relaxation and adventure. As they boarded, Helena noticed the glittering blue water reflecting off Emma's excited eyes, capturing that precious moment forever in her memory. Their first 2 days on the cruise were everything they had imagined and more. They enjoyed decadent dinners in elegant dining rooms, played games together on the spacious deck, and watched breathtaking sunsets that painted the sky in vibrant hues of orange and pink. Emma made friends easily, running around and laughing. As Christian proudly watched her, Helena felt profoundly grateful, cherishing every second with her family. On the morning of the 3rd day, the sun rose gently over the calm sea, filling their spacious cabin with a golden glow. Helena awakened slowly, seeing Christian already awake and meticulously folding clothes, his subtle obsession with order evident in his careful movements. "Good morning, my love," he said softly, kissing Helena's forehead as she sat up. "Good morning," she replied, smiling softly, watching Emma still sleeping peacefully. Breakfast was filled with joyful chatter. Emma ate pancakes covered in strawberries and whipped cream, giggling at Christian's jokes. Afterward, Christian suggested going to the swimming pool, a decision met with great enthusiasm by Emma. Helena, feeling slightly tired, decided to rest a bit in their cabin before joining them later. "I'll see you both in a little while," she said warmly, hugging Emma tightly before letting her run off hand in hand with Christian. Watching them disappear down the hallway, she felt an inexplicable tightening in her chest, quickly shaking it off as simple fatigue. In the quiet comfort of her cabin, Helena drifted into a peaceful sleep, unaware of how profoundly her life was about to change. She awoke suddenly, glancing at her watch. Hours had passed. Feeling uneasy at having slept so long, Helena quickly dressed and hurried out, walking briskly toward the swimming pool's dot. As she reached the deck, Helena scanned the area for Christian and Anna, expecting to see their familiar laughter or playful splashing. Her eyes darted from face to face, slowly becoming anxious as she saw neither of them anywhere. With her heart racing, Helena began approaching other passengers, asking if they had seen her husband and daughter, describing them carefully. No one recalled seeing them recently. Panic steadily built inside her chest, tightening painfully. Her voice trembled as she asked crew members, now searching increasingly frantically, each negative response deepening her dread. Unable to find them, she rushed to the main reception desk, desperately informing the crew about the situation. Immediately, alarms rose within the ship's personnel. Announcements were made across the Northern Star, requesting Christian and Emma Muller to report urgently to the reception. Helena's eyes filled with tears, her breathing becoming shallow as passengers gathered curiously around her, whispering nervously among themselves. Minutes stretched agonizingly into hours. Crew members searched cabins, storage rooms, dining halls, every corner of the massive vessel. The captain himself appeared, reassuring Helena they would soon be found, yet his words felt empty. She watched helplessly as the orderly ship turned into controlled chaos. Police aboard began to question passengers, carefully but persistently, their faces increasingly tense as time passed without any sign of father and daughter. Helena felt lost in a surreal nightmare. Her body trembled uncontrollably. Fear clawed at her throat. She retraced her family's steps repeatedly, shouting Emma's name until her voice became raw. Her panic transformed into sheer despair, feeling her heart breaking piece by piece. Her beautiful family trip had turned inexplicably into her worst fear. As darkness fell over the sea, passengers watched anxiously as helicopters flew overhead, scanning the ocean waters. Powerful searchlights illuminated waves that offered no answers. The Northern Star slowed, and crew members systematically checked each area once more. Yet, they discovered nothing. By midnight, Helena found herself in the captain's office, facing the grim expression on his weathered face. He sighed deeply, his voice gentle but carrying painful weight. Double quotes, "Mrs. Muller, I am profoundly sorry," he began, struggling with words. "But despite all efforts, we have found absolutely no trace of your husband or daughter on board the ship. It's as if they simply vanished." Helena stared at him, unable to comprehend, shaking her head desperately. "They have to be somewhere," she whispered, tears streaming silently down her pale cheeks. "I assure you, Mrs. Muller, we've done everything possible here," the captain continued somberly. "When we reach the port in Stavanger, the Norwegian Maritime Police and Interpol will take over. They have more resources. Perhaps they'll find something we missed." Helena collapsed into a nearby chair, her strength leaving her completely. Her eyes fixed vacantly upon the floor, the captain's words echoing hauntingly in her mind. The unbearable uncertainty gripped her chest painfully, suffocating her slowly, relentlessly. "Mrs. Muller?" the captain prompted softly, but Helena could no longer hear clearly. Her vision blurred from tears and exhaustion. Her once perfect world had shattered entirely. leaving only an emptiness she had never imagined. The captain stepped back quietly, allowing silence to envelop the room. The muffled sounds of the ongoing search faded, leaving Helena alone with devastating questions and no answers. She sat motionless, gripping tightly to a small locket hanging around her neck, a treasured gift from Emma. Inside it, a photograph of Emma's radiant smile stared back at her. Unaware of the nightmare now consuming her mother's heart, Helena knew, with terrifying certainty, that life as she had known it was over. Just as she felt herself slipping further into despair, a soft knock sounded again at the door. Helena lifted her head weakly, barely noticing the captain's compassionate eyes returning to her. Double quotes Mrs. Muller. He spoke quietly, solemnly, each word like a heavy stone. Please try to rest. As soon as we reach Norway, the maritime police will begin their investigation. Helena closed her eyes slowly, each word embedding deeper into her soul. In the suffocating stillness of the captain's office, Helena Muller knew only one thing. For certain, her perfect family had vanished completely, and her nightmare had just begun. The Northern Star approached the port of Stavanger, Norway, beneath a gray, foreboding sky. Passengers gathered nervously on the decks, whispering in hushed voices about the tragedy that had unfolded during the night. As the ship drew closer to shore, police cars with flashing blue lights and uniformed officers appeared along the docks, awaiting the arrival of the troubled vessel. Helena stood quietly near the railing, wrapped in a heavy blanket, pale and trembling from exhaustion and shock. Her face was drained of color, eyes swollen and reddened from countless tears. She held tightly onto Emma's small teddy bear, as though releasing it might somehow sever the last fragile connection she had to her daughter. When the gangway lowered and touched land, maritime police and Interpol agents quickly boarded, their presence authoritative and focused. Helena was immediately escorted to a private area within the port building. The room was stark, windowless, and sterile cold in every sense of the word. An officer with a kind but serious expression gently guided her to a seat. Mrs. Muller, he began cautiously, flipping open a small notebook. I'm Inspector Andres Nagad, head of this investigation. I understand how difficult this is for you, but I need you to recount precisely what happened. Helena nodded slowly, gripping the bear even tighter, her voice faint but determined. As she described the last morning she saw Christian and Emma, Inspector Nygard listened intently, noting every detail, however insignificant it seemed. Outside the interview room, investigators questioned crew members, passengers, and staff. The atmosphere was thick with tension. No one seemed to know anything. No one recalled anything unusual. It was as if Christian and Emma Muller had never even been on board. The hours crawled painfully. Police combed meticulously through every inch of the Northern Star. Cabins were searched again, storerooms emptied, pools drained. Helicopters scoured the sea, boats patrolled the nearby waters, but nothing surfaced. The search teams returned empty-handed, their expressions increasingly grim. Helena felt suffocated by the hopelessness. By evening, she was escorted to a modest hotel near the harbor, barely noticing the pitying looks of strangers. As she sat alone, a television screen flickered in her room, silently replaying her family's happy faces now plastered across the international news. Photos of Christian's confident smile and Emma's innocent joy became haunting reminders of what she'd lost. Within days, Stavanger had transformed into a hub of frantic international attention. Journalists crowded outside Helena's hotel, bombarding her with questions she couldn't answer. Finally, persuaded by Inspector Nygard, Helena agreed to speak publicly, hoping desperately that her plea would somehow break the unbearable silence surrounding their disappearance. At a crowded press conference, Helena stood shaking, facing cameras from all over Europe. Her voice trembled as she made her emotional appeal. Please, if anyone saw anything, even the smallest detail, I beg you. Help me find my daughter. Bring Emma back to me." Tears streamed openly down her cheeks, her vulnerability raw and deeply felt by all who watched. Helena's heartbreaking plea echoed around the world, thrusting her family's tragedy into the global spotlight. Yet despite the media frenzy, no useful leads emerged. Instead, confusing and contradictory sightings flooded police hotlines, stretching resources thin. Some claimed to have seen Emma in Oslo, others insisted Christian was spotted boarding a plane in Copenhagen. Each false clue deepened Helena's despair, leaving her lost in an endless maze of misinformation. Weeks became months, and hope slowly dissolved into grief. Helena returned to Berlin, to an apartment unbearably empty and silent. Her home became a ghost of happier times. Emma's bedroom was untouched, toys lying scattered as if waiting for their owner's return. Christian's clothes remained neatly folded, precisely as he'd left them. Life around her gradually resumed its normal rhythm, but Helena could not move forward. Friends and family tried to comfort her, urging her to embrace acceptance, yet their words rang hollow. Nothing made sense without Emma's laughter or Christian's gentle touch. Helena grew increasingly withdrawn, rejecting invitations, declining phone calls, locking herself away from the world. She became consumed by the desperate need to find answers. Nights were spent combing through police reports, reading and rereading statements, hunting for a detail everyone might have overlooked. But nothing revealed itself, no trace, no explanation, only the haunting emptiness of their absence. Years passed painfully. Friends moved on, news headlines faded, but Helena remained trapped, her life suspended indefinitely. She sought therapy, briefly, but abandoned it, finding no solace in mere words. Her only comfort was Emma's teddy bear, worn now from her constant grip, the last piece of warmth in an existence grown utterly cold. The more time passed, the more isolated Helena became. She rarely left home, groceries and necessities delivered to her door. The vibrant woman she'd once been disappeared, replaced by a hollow shadow haunted by loss and unanswered questions. The city beyond her window bustled on, unaware of her solitary torment. Then, one quiet night, 14 years after that fateful cruise, Helena sat alone in her dimly lit living room. Her laptop sat open before her, casting a faint glow over her pale, weary face. Idly, she clicked through YouTube videos, her tired eyes barely focusing. The sound turned down low. Suddenly, a video thumbnail caught her eye, a viral sensation from a popular Norwegian channel. A bright young woman appeared on screen, her blonde hair glowing under studio lights, eyes sparkling with excitement. Helena felt an odd tug at her heart, something strangely familiar in the girl's radiant smile. Intrigued, she clicked on the video, her pulse quickening inexplicably. The woman introduced herself cheerfully in fluent Norwegian, speaking warmly about old memorabilia and artifacts from past travels. Helena leaned forward, heart pounding, unable to look away. Something about the young woman's mannerisms stirred a deep, aching memory within her. Then, the woman on screen laughed, a musical, unmistakable sound that shot straight through Helena's soul. Her hands shook violently as realization crept in. She rewound the video, watching closely, noticing how the woman nervously twisted a particular strand of blonde hair around her finger, a gesture Helena had seen 1,000 times before. Helena's heart raced uncontrollably. "It can't be," she whispered aloud, voice quivering in disbelief. Yet, each detail matched perfectly: Emma's smile, her laugh, her gesture. Breathlessly, Helena stared at the screen, tears flooding her eyes, her heart exploding with shock and cautious hope. But what sealed her certainty forever appeared moments later, when the woman on screen reached behind her and picked up a small object, holding it up clearly for the camera, a faded cruise ticket, familiar blue and white markings visible even through the video's grainy pixels. Helena froze, feeling her blood run cold, her entire body trembling uncontrollably. Her eyes fixated intensely on the ticket clutched casually in the woman's hand, a piece of paper identical in every way to the ticket she, Christian, and Emma had used that tragic day aboard the Northern Star. Helena stared at the screen, heart hammering wildly against her chest. 14 years had passed. 14 long years of agony, unanswered questions, and relentless grief. And now, suddenly, impossibly, Emma stood before her, alive, smiling, and holding in her hands the undeniable evidence that linked them to that horrifying day of loss and mystery. Helena reached out toward the screen, fingers brushing gently against the glass as though she might touch her daughter through sheer force of will. Her breath came shallow, her vision blurred with tears. "My Emma," she whispered faintly, voice cracking, barely audible above her pounding heart. How is this even possible? At that very moment, Helena knew with absolute clarity her life had once again changed irrevocably. This was no mere coincidence, no cruel hallucination born of grief and despair. Emma was alive somewhere beyond. That video holding the truth Helena had waited 14 painful years to uncover. And Helena vowed silently, fiercely to herself, that no matter what it took or how far she had to go, she would find her daughter again and finally, after all these years, discover what really happened aboard the Northern Star. She paused the video on the frozen image of Emma's smiling face, clutching tightly to the familiar, haunting ticket. Her search had just begun. Helena stared at the frozen frame on her computer screen, breathless and overwhelmed. The video showed her daughter, her precious Emma, now grown, smiling as if the nightmare of 14 years ago had never happened. But the faded cruise ticket in Emma's hands told Helena that this was no coincidence. It was real. The initial shock slowly turned into determination. Helena immediately searched for information about the channel that had uploaded the video. It belonged to a popular Norwegian YouTuber named Lars Berk, whose channel focused on antiques, curiosities, and nostalgic memorabilia. She scrolled through dozens of videos, her heart racing, looking for clues. Every video seemed innocent, harmless, just a young man passionate about history. Yet, Helena knew Emma's appearance couldn't be accidental. Gathering her courage, she sent a detailed message to Lars, carefully explaining her situation. Helena spent a restless night waiting, barely sleeping, staring anxiously at her phone. Early the next morning, her phone buzzed. Lars had responded quickly, expressing sympathy and surprise. He didn't personally know the young woman. She'd simply sent him the video anonymously, identifying herself only as Ida Hansen, a name entirely unfamiliar to Helena. Disappointment washed over Helena, but she wasn't ready to give up. Lars mentioned that he regularly attended antique fairs in Oslo, meeting contributors and fans of his channel. Perhaps, he suggested kindly, Ida might appear at one. Helena took the hint. Without hesitation, she booked the first available flight. To Oslo. The journey was filled with mixed emotions. Fear battled excitement, hope mixed with caution. When Helena arrived in Oslo, autumn colors painted the city warmly. Yet, she hardly noticed the beauty around her. Her mind was locked on one goal: finding Emma. The antique fair was held downtown, crowded with locals and tourists browsing stands filled with vintage treasures. Helena wandered anxiously, her eyes scanning every face, heart leaping at each blonde-haired young woman. Then, across the busy market square, she spotted a familiar figure, a slender young woman standing near Lars Berg's booth, blonde hair shimmering in the sunlight. Helena's heart stopped. "Emma," she whispered, breath catching painfully. She moved forward quickly, pushing through the crowd, adrenaline surging. But as she approached, a sudden commotion drew Emma's attention away. She turned abruptly and began to move through the crowd, rapidly vanishing into the throng of people. "Wait." Emma Helena called desperately, but the noise drowned her voice. She hurried toward the spot, but when she arrived, Emma had vanished. Again, Helena stood there, trembling, hopelessness crashing back. Lars noticed her distress and approached gently. "Was that her?" he asked softly. "Yes," Helena whispered, fighting tears. "It was my daughter." Lars guided Helena to a quiet corner of the fair. He handed her a cup of hot coffee, his voice gentle. "I'll help you however I can." Days passed as Lars and Helena searched tirelessly. Lars asked viewers for information. Helena posted emotional pleas online. Tips flooded in, most useless. But one recurring detail emerged. Emma Ida Hansen was extremely private, always accompanied discreetly by a protective older man, tall, blonde, with intense eyes. Helena felt chills down her spine. The description matched Christian exactly. The realization terrified her. Christian had been hiding Emma all these years. Determined, Helena and Lars worked together, combing through social media, tracing tiny digital footprints left inadvertently by Emma. They discovered she had no online presence herself, yet occasionally appeared briefly in other people's posts. Always distant, always wary. One evening, Lars excitedly showed Helena a brief, shaky video from a cafe in central Oslo. Emma was clearly visible, nervously twisting. Her hair, her signature gesture seated across from Christian, older now, but undeniably him. They spoke quietly, almost conspiratorially. Helena's blood boiled with anger and desperation. How could Christian do this? Hide their daughter, erase her existence, manipulate her reality? Driven by newfound resolve, Helena and Lars mapped out every location Emma appeared. Patterns emerged. She frequented quiet, isolated areas, always vigilant, always protected by her father. They visited these places, cafes, bookstores, parks, always arriving just moments too late. Each near miss deepened Helena's frustration, but she felt closer than ever to unraveling the mystery. As Helena grew more determined, unsettling incidents began. Strange messages appeared on her phone, warnings urging her to stop searching. Once, she found her hotel room door slightly ajar, though nothing was taken. Someone was watching her, actively hindering her progress. Frightened yet unwavering, Helena pressed on, feeling time slipping through her fingers. Each moment without answers intensified her pain. She wondered constantly, did Emma remember her at all? Finally, Lars uncovered a critical detail: Emma's residential address, hidden away in a quiet suburb on Oslo's outskirts. Helena's heart soared. She finally had a chance to see Emma face to face. To end this tormenting uncertainty, "You must be careful, Helena," Lars cautioned gently. "Whoever protects Emma has resources. This could be dangerous." "I don't care," Helena replied, her voice steady and unyielding. "She's my daughter. I've lost 14 years. I won't lose another day." Helena thanked Lars warmly, promising to stay safe. Alone, she traveled to the small suburban neighborhood by taxi, heart-hammering with anticipation. The area was quiet, lined with trees shedding autumn leaves. Streets peaceful, yet eerily isolated. Arriving at the exact address, Helena stepped cautiously onto the narrow sidewalk, her breath visible in the chilly air. The modest house stood, partially obscured by tall hedges, deliberately uninviting, as though designed to repel curious eyes. Approaching the front door, Helena paused, suddenly overcome by intense anxiety. Her thoughts raced uncontrollably. What would she say? How would Emma react after years of lies? Steadying herself, Helena noticed a faint glow through the curtains. Someone was home. She took a deep breath, each step feeling heavier than the last. Her pulse quickened with every movement forward. Suddenly, movement caught her eye. A shadow passed quickly across the window. Someone had spotted her arrival. She froze momentarily, fear rising in her throat. Summoning her courage again, she reached the porch steps. The world seemed unnaturally silent, as if holding its breath. Alongside her, Helena's fingers trembled as she raised her hand to knock, knowing that behind this door waited the answers she'd craved for so many painful years. She hesitated just a second longer, heart pounding furiously. Finally, gathering all her remaining strength, Helena stepped forward decisively. She raised her hand firmly, prepared to face whatever truth waited on the other side. Her journey had led her here, to this doorstep, after 14 agonizing years of waiting, searching, and hoping. She took one last, steadying breath. Helena's knuckles hovered mere inches from the door, her heart racing with determination and dread, knowing that once she knocked, everything would finally change. Forever. Helena took a deep breath and knocked firmly on the door, her heart pounding loudly. The echoes seemed to ripple through the silent street, yet no sound emerged from within. She waited anxiously, shifting nervously on the porch. After tense moments of silence, Helena knocked again, louder this time. Desperation growing in her chest. Still, nothing. Feeling her pulse quicken, Helena carefully stepped back and peered through a small window beside the door. She noticed the curtains partially drawn back, revealing glimpses of overturned furniture, scattered papers, and signs of hurried departure. A sinking feeling washed over her. The house had been hastily abandoned. Panic surged inside her. Had someone alerted them she was coming? Who was protecting Emma, and why did they flee so quickly? Shaking with uncertainty, Helena pulled out her phone and dialed the local police. Within 20 minutes, 2 Norwegian officers arrived, there, faces serious as they inspected the empty house. Helena explained the situation urgently, showing them videos, screenshots, and Emma's photograph. Moved by her story and understanding the gravity, the officers immediately called their superior. Within hours, Helena found herself sitting across from Inspector Nygard again, the very detective who'd led the initial investigation 14 years before. Older now, his face showed lines of weariness and frustration. His eyes met hers with empathy. Double quotes Mrs. Muller. Nygard spoke softly. "We failed you 14 years ago. Let me assure you we will do everything possible this time." He introduced her to Eric Larson, a retired investigator specializing in missing persons. Eric was tall, silver-haired, and had kind, intelligent eyes that instantly reassured her. He shook Helena's hand gently. "I've reviewed your case extensively," Eric began, his calm voice steadying her nerves. "Let's start by retracing Emma's steps. There must be something they overlooked." Together, they meticulously examined the abandoned house. Each room was chaotic, clothes scattered hastily, papers shredded, half-packed bags left behind. Helena trembled as she recognized subtle details, Emma's familiar scent lingering faintly, small reminders of her daughter everywhere. It felt like a cruel reminder of all she had missed. In a desk drawer, Eric uncovered forged identity documents. Emma's smiling face appeared beneath the name Ida Hansen. The papers indicated a carefully crafted identity, complete with a false birth certificate, medical records, and educational transcripts, all fabricated. It was clear Emma had lived hidden, constantly shielded from public life. Why isolate her like this? Helena whispered, her voice breaking. Who would go to such lengths? Eric nodded gravely, holding documents thoughtfully. Someone deeply invested in keeping her hidden, someone controlling every aspect of her life. Days passed, filled with intense investigation. Eric and Helena examined Emma's past locations, finding similar abandoned homes across Scandinavia, each residence short-lived, reflecting a transient, cautious existence. Interviews with neighbors always produced identical stories. Ida Hansen was quiet, shy, and always closely guarded by her protective father. Helena felt chills each time she heard Christian described. Helena's grief turned gradually to anger. She'd mourned Christian's disappearance for years, never imagining he could orchestrate such cruelty. She recalled his meticulous habits, his obsession with perfection traits, now appearing sinister rather than comforting. Eric uncovered further unsettling details. Emma had no social media presence, no traceable friendships or relationships. Her education was entirely conducted at home. Every clue painted a stark picture of isolation and manipulation. Yet the question lingered heavily. Why? Helena grew increasingly desperate. "We have to find them," she insisted repeatedly, pacing Eric's small, cluttered office. Christian can't keep her hidden forever. Eric observed her carefully, recognizing the torment behind her eyes. "Helena, we will find her," he assured firmly. "But we must first understand Christian's motivation." Clearly, the more we know, the easier it becomes. Eric dove deeply into Christian Muller's past. They retraced Christian's life meticulously, revisiting Berlin, interviewing former colleagues and neighbors. Each conversation revealed similar patterns. Christian appeared pleasant yet secretive, a perfectionist uncomfortable with criticism, displaying subtle signs of paranoia about others' intentions. Returning to Oslo, Eric and Helena revisited the original police reports from the Northern Star. They noticed details overlooked before Christian's overly organized belongings, his deliberate distancing from other passengers, his insistence on privacy. A troubling portrait slowly emerged, contrasting starkly with Helena's memories. The loving husband and father she'd adored seemed to mask something darker, carefully hidden. Eric's meticulous investigation brought unexpected clarity. A breakthrough came when a former neighbor recalled Christian's odd fascination with psychology and mental health. Intrigued, Eric expanded the search, delving into confidential medical records from Christian's early adulthood in Germany. As days turned into weeks, Helena grew restless. Each passing moment without Emma intensified her anxiety. She imagined Emma somewhere frightened, confused, still manipulated. Nights became torturous, filled with painful memories and relentless worry. Finally, Eric received a crucial lead from an old psychiatric clinic in Oslo. The clinic, closed for several years, had stored extensive archives. A discreet informant helped Eric access patient records, sealed away and long forgotten. Sitting together in a quiet cafe, Eric faced Helena solemnly. He held a file carefully, his eyes filled with unease. "Helena," Eric began cautiously, "before I show you this, you must prepare yourself." Helena felt her stomach tighten with dread. "What is it?" she asked quietly. Eric opened the file slowly. "Years before your family cruise," he explained gently, "Christian sought professional help secretly here in Oslo." Helena felt her heart skip. "Professional help?" Eric nodded grimly. Christian Muller was a patient at the Oslo Psychiatric Clinic. The records indicate treatment for severe paranoia and obsessive behaviors. Helena's breath caught painfully in her throat. "Paranoia? Obsessive behaviors?" Eric's voice softened further. Christian displayed intense fears about losing his family, particularly Emma. His paranoia manifested as extreme possessiveness. The psychologist warned explicitly about potential danger if his condition deteriorated. Helena shook her head in disbelief, eyes filling with tears. "How did I never know this?" "Christian concealed it perfectly," Eric replied quietly. His obsession with control drove him to extremes, creating an illusion of normality. But behind it, he was deeply disturbed. Helena covered her mouth, tears streaming silently. "You're saying Christian kidnapped Emma himself?" All evidence points to it, Eric confirmed gently. He faked their disappearance, isolated Emma from society, and raised her under false pretenses, likely convincing her you were dead. Helena felt faint, overwhelmed by horror and sorrow. He stole her entire life, she whispered bitterly. Emma grew up believing lies about me. Eric reached out compassionately. Helena, we now know the truth. This knowledge gives us the power to finally find them. Helena straightened suddenly, new determination lighting her eyes. Where do we begin? Eric closed the file decisively. We track Christian's patterns, anticipate his moves. He's cautious but predictable. Now that he knows we're close, he'll panic. And when he panics, he'll make mistakes. Helena took a deep breath, resolve steadying her nerves. Then let's make sure we're ready. Together, they carefully planned their next move, meticulously analyzing Christian's past decisions. Helena felt hope flicker within her, tempered by apprehension. The secrets she'd uncovered about the man she once loved deeply unsettled her. Yet clarified her mission. She thought of Emma constantly, wondering how much damage had been inflicted. Each revelation brought sadness, anger, but above all, determination. She promised silently, fiercely, she would find her daughter, whatever it took. Days later, Eric approached Helena urgently, holding a map filled with marked locations. We've identified patterns, he stated confidently. Christian chooses remote, quiet places where isolation is easy. Helena nodded eagerly, heart racing. Then we search those places immediately. Eric hesitated, concern evident. This could become dangerous. Helena. Christian's paranoia makes him unpredictable. Helena's gaze hardened resolutely. I've faced danger every day since Emma disappeared. I'll take any risk to get her back. Eric studied her briefly, admiration crossing his features. Then, let's finish this, Helena. Just as they prepared to leave, Eric paused briefly, glancing again at Christian's medical records. He looked gravely into Helena's eyes. Helena, there's one more detail you need to know, he said slowly, his voice heavy. Christian psychiatrists specifically noted he suffered from severe obsessive paranoia. It wasn't just a mild condition, it was profound. Helena's breath caught painfully again, heart sinking under the weight of this revelation. She stared at Eric, absorbing his words deeply, recognizing the man she'd loved had been far more dangerous than she'd ever imagined. Helena sat silently, unable to absorb the shocking reality about Christian's past. The man she had trusted and loved deeply had secretly hidden a darkness that now threatened everything she held dear. She stared at the medical reports Eric handed her, detailing Christian's severe paranoia and obsessive behaviors, traits that had been carefully concealed behind the facade of a perfect husband and father. Her mind flashed back to quiet moments before the tragedy. Scenes she had once dismissed as normal, now filled with sinister implications. 14 years earlier, in their apartment in Berlin, Christian carefully rearranged Emma's toys on a shelf, meticulously lining them up in perfect order. Helena had watched him, amused at his attention to detail. Now, recalling the intensity in his eyes, the obsessive precision, she realized the disturbing depth beneath his actions. Christian's behavior had always been subtly controlling, especially toward Emma. Small things, seemingly innocent at the time, suddenly became alarmingly clear. Helena remembered vividly a warm summer afternoon in Berlin when Emma, only 5 then, played happily in the park with neighborhood children. Christian's jaw tightened visibly each time Emma laughed with another child. He had hurriedly pulled Emma away, sharply reprimanding Helena afterward. She could get hurt playing with others. He had insisted firmly, eyes filled with suppressed anger. Helena dismissed it then as simple fatherly protectiveness, never imagining it hinted at deeper paranoia. Other scenes returned vividly. Christian quietly reading parenting books late at night, underlining passages about isolation, safety, and control. Helena had casually glanced at his notes once, disturbed momentarily by phrases emphasizing isolation as the key to safety, dismissing them as overly cautious parenting. Arguments between them had been infrequent but intense, often about Emma's education or social activities. Christian adamantly opposed enrolling Emma in kindergarten, claiming passionately she was safer at home. Helena remembered feeling unsettled but never truly understood the obsessive root behind Christian's insistence. Now, Helena's heart ached with guilt and regret. She wondered painfully if she had ignored warnings, failing to protect Emma when it mattered most. Determined to understand Christian's actions fully, Helena and Eric revisited the apartment in Berlin. Despite years of emptiness, entering the home brought an overwhelming wave of memories. Carefully, they searched the place, uncovering hidden documents, journals, and detailed notes Christian had secretly kept locked away in a small box in his closet. Helena's hands shook as she opened Christian's notebooks, filled meticulously with obsessive plans and ideas. Pages outlined how to create a new life far away, complete with false identities and elaborate cover stories. She found precise maps highlighting isolated areas in Norway, notes scribbled in Christian's careful handwriting detailing the perfect locations to vanish without a trace. Helena's stomach twisted in horror as she understood the truth clearly. The cruise aboard the Northern Star hadn't been a spontaneous vacation. It had been carefully planned, intended to sever Helena from Emma forever. Christian's final entries explicitly describe his intentions, chillingly calm and detailed. The cruise provides the perfect setting. Helena trusts me completely. Once on board, no one will question Emma's disappearance. Authorities will assume tragedy, not deception. Tears spilled freely down Helena's face as she read the calculated cruelty behind Christian's plan. Eric gently placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "You couldn't have known," he whispered softly, offering compassion. Christian deceived everyone brilliantly. Shattered but resolute, Helena returned to Oslo with Eric, determined to use this newfound knowledge to locate Emma and Christian before he could vanish again. Further investigations, supported by Inspector Nygaard, uncovered connections between Christian's careful planning and numerous secluded residences he had secretly purchased across Norway. Each place was discreet, isolated, ideal for hiding indefinitely. Their focus soon narrowed to a particular remote cabin near Stavanger, hidden deep in a thick forest beside a quiet lake. Records indicated Christian had acquired it shortly after their disappearance. Witnesses in nearby villages confirmed occasional sightings of a quiet father and his daughter living secretly, avoiding all outside interaction. Helena felt a painful surge of hope. She imagined Emma, isolated in that remote place, unaware of the deception controlling her life. How many years had Emma believed Helena dead? How profoundly had Christian twisted reality? Inspector Nygaard quickly arranged a discreet police operation to capture Christian and rescue Emma. Eric and Helena joined them anxiously, waiting tensely as armed officers silently moved through dense woods under twilight, approaching the hidden cabin carefully. Helena's pulse raced, emotions overwhelming her. She imagined finally holding Emma again, desperate to erase years of pain and confusion. But as officers reached the cabin, they discovered signs of recent hurried escape. Doors left wide open, belongings abandoned hastily as if Christian had fled mere moments before their arrival. Helena's heart sank devastatingly. Officers searched rapidly, uncovering small signs of Emma's life: books, journals, sketches, remnants of a sheltered existence. Helena carefully picked up a drawing Emma had made, a simple sketch depicting a young girl beside a gravestone labeled Mom. Pain flooded Helena as she realized the truth. Christian had convinced Emma entirely that she was dead. Eric approached gently, sadness evident. They left quickly, he stated calmly. Christian must have sensed us approaching. Inspector Nygard nodded gravely. He's extremely cautious. He must have an escape plan ready. Helena stared blankly at the cabin, devastation and anger mixing. Painfully, he can't keep running, she whispered fiercely. We must stop him. Police rapidly searched the surrounding area, but Christian had prepared carefully. Small hidden paths led through dense trees to the lake's edge, where a small boat had vanished. Christian had once again meticulously planned his escape route. As officers regrouped near the empty cabin, Inspector Nygard approached Helena solemnly, frustration clear in his voice. I'm truly sorry, Mrs. Muller, Nygard began quietly. Christian anticipated us. We underestimated him again. Helena turned away sharply, fighting back tears. Where could they have gone? Eric stepped forward, eyes reassuring. Christian will be cautious but desperate now. This panic might finally make him vulnerable. He'll make mistakes. Helena breathed deeply, gathering her strength. Then we capitalize on his panic. We continue until we find them. Inspector Nygard nodded decisively. We'll intensify our search immediately. Helena walked slowly around the empty cabin, feeling Emma's presence faintly lingering. Everything here spoke painfully of isolation, secrecy, and careful manipulation. Yet Helena felt fiercely determined. Christian's facade had finally cracked. He was vulnerable, exposed, and she would not rest until Emma was safe again. As officers combed through remaining evidence, Helena stood silently by the lake, watching ripples distort reflections of twilight clouds. Memories surged again, sharp and painful. She felt betrayed and angry. Christian had manipulated everything, even her grief. He'd stolen Emma's innocence, her happiness, her chance for a normal life. Helena vowed silently, intensely, never to stop until Emma was safely back in her arms. Christian's control was unraveling, his paranoia no longer hidden. He'd chosen isolation to control Emma, yet ironically, it was isolation that would finally trap him. At that moment, an officer approached Helena urgently, interrupting her thoughts. She turned anxiously, hope flickering faintly again. Did you find something? Helena asked quickly. The officer hesitated, clearly distressed. We found tire tracks leading away from a hidden road. They escaped by car, heading north. We believe Christian planned this secondary escape route thoroughly. Inspector Nygard approached grimly. I'm afraid we've lost them for now, Helena. Christian escaped again, and Emma is still with him. Helena stared at Nygard, despair filling her heart. The cruel cycle continued relentlessly. Christian remained one step ahead, endlessly elusive, controlling the narrative. She clenched her fists tightly, determination blazing fiercely through despair. Christian had made a fatal mistake, his obsessive paranoia now exposed clearly. Helena knew he would slip again soon. His facade of perfection had finally shattered entirely, leaving him desperate and increasingly reckless. With quiet intensity, Helena whispered firmly, Then we pursue him immediately. Christian won't win this time. Inspector Nygard met her, gaze nodding resolutely. We won't rest until we find Emma. Helena looked back toward the silent lake, whispering softly into the deepening shadows. Hold on, Emma. I'm coming for you. She knew the darkest truths now, Christian's hidden face finally revealed. Armed with knowledge and determination, Helena vowed nothing would stop her until Emma was free. As night fell heavily across the isolated cabin, Helena and the officers regrouped, preparing swiftly for the inevitable confrontation yet to come. Nightfall blanketed the forests of Norway in a dense, velvet darkness. Helena stood with Eric and Inspector Nygard outside the empty lakeside cabin, their breath misting in the cool air. Helena felt exhaustion deep within her bones, but determination burned fiercely inside her. She refused to let Christian slip away again, not this time. Inspector Nigard received a sudden call on his radio. The team had received an anonymous tip indicating Christian was heading north, toward a remote mountainous region near Lillehammer. It was an isolated place, rugged and treacherous, perfect for hiding, but difficult to escape from once discovered. Without hesitation, Helena insisted she join the pursuit. Nigard hesitated initially, concerned for her safety, but seeing the unwavering resolve in her eyes, he finally agreed. Together, they swiftly mobilized, speeding northward through winding mountain roads under moonlight. Helena felt her heart racing with anticipation. Eric glanced at her occasionally, sensing her tension, gently reassuring her that their journey was nearing its end. The mountainous terrain gradually became harsher and more daunting, thick forests giving way to jagged rocks and sheer cliffs. Hours passed in tense silence as their vehicle ascended steep, narrow paths. Helena's mind raced uncontrollably, thoughts swirling with hopes, fears, and countless unanswered questions. As dawn broke over distant peaks, the team finally reached the edge of a vast, rugged area marked by sharp cliffs and dense pines. They exited their vehicles, carefully approaching the area indicated by the tip. Silence enveloped them, broken only by distant birdsong echoing through the mountains. Inspector Nigard signaled silently to his officers to spread out carefully. Helena stayed close to Eric, eyes anxiously scanning every shadow, her pulse pounding in her ears. Suddenly, a muffled scream pierced the quiet, coming from a secluded area just beyond the tree line. Helena's heart leapt painfully. It was unmistakably Emma's voice. "Emma!" she called instinctively, rushing forward despite Eric's urgent caution. Helena stumbled over uneven ground, pushing through dense branches, desperate to reach her daughter. Bursting into a clearing, she froze momentarily at the sight before her. Emma stood at the edge of a rocky cliff, pale and visibly shaken, eyes wide with confusion. Christian stood near her, agitated and frantic, pleading urgently with Emma, his voice cracking with desperation. "Emma, trust me. We have to go now." Christian shouted anxiously, grabbing at her wrist. Emma pulled away weakly, clearly distraught. "You've been lying to me. Why did you lie?" "I don't know who I am anymore." Christian's expression turned increasingly frantic, noticing police approaching quickly from multiple directions. "They'll take you away from me, Emma. You can't let them. You're mine." Helena stepped forward, voice trembling with urgency. "Emma, it's me, your mother. He's been lying to you. Please come here." Emma turned, eyes filled with disbelief, tears streaming down her face. "No, he said you died. He showed me proof." Christian shouted desperately, moving closer to the cliff's edge. "She's lying, Emma. She's trying to take you away again." Helena took another careful step forward, heartbreaking as she saw Emma's anguish. "Emma, please listen to me. You remember this," she said, holding up Emma's worn teddy bear, the last tangible connection to their past. "You carried this everywhere. You remember me singing you to sleep, how much I love you. Remember, Emma." Emma's eyes locked onto the teddy bear, confusion and pain flooding her features. She pressed hands to her temples, memories fighting violently inside her mind. Christian's eyes filled with panic, realizing his control was slipping. Suddenly, he lunged forward, grabbing Emma roughly. "Come now. I won't let them take you." Emma struggled, breaking free and stumbling dangerously near the cliff edge. Rocks crumbled beneath her feet, nearly causing her to lose balance. Helena cried out fearfully, rushing forward instinctively, but Eric and Nigard held her back, concerned for her safety. Christian froze momentarily, fear in his eyes. Seeing police closing in, he turned sharply, trying to escape along the cliffside. But officers blocked every possible route. "Christian Muller, stop immediately!" Nygaard shouted firmly, his voice echoing powerfully through the canyon. Christian realizes there's no way out and collapses, sobbing that everything he did was to protect Emma. Police restrain him, and his elaborate delusion crumbles. Emma, shaken on the cliff's edge, hears Helena's gentle plea and slowly recognizes her mother. She steps away from danger, whispers, "Mama," and runs into Helena's arms, weeping with relief. Emma admits Christian showed fake evidence of Helena's death. Helena comforts her, explaining he was ill but that they're finally safe together. Christian, defeated, confesses to Nygaard and Eric he'd been driven by obsessive paranoia and fabricated Helena's death to keep Emma close. Officers lead him away while Helena and Emma cling to each other, hearts mending after 14 years apart. In an ambulance, Eric praises Helena's perseverance. Helena assures Emma they will heal and rebuild a life grounded in trust and love. Mother and daughter, united at last, embrace the hope of a new beginning, proving love's power over loss and deception.